All right, well, welcome back. Today we're going to be finishing section 4 on the monster eel in chapter 5 called The Ritual of Death in the book Primitive Mythology by Joseph Campbell. And I'm in a little bit different place today, so a little darker, a little different, but we will press on. The adventure as here narrated was taken down from the lips of Fariua Amakitua, an old chieftain of the island Fagatu in the Tuamato archipelago, which is in the very middle of the Pacific, just east of the Society Islands and Tahiti. The old man had been a disciple in his youth of an earlier teacher, Kamake, who in his time had been regarded as the greatest of all the Tuamatoan sages. And I have presented this unadulterated version of the legend of Hina and the monster eel in extenso, not only because it renders authentically the moral atmosphere of the ancient Polynesian epics, but also because it may serve as an introduction to our later studies of magic, the force of magic, and the power of erotic elements in primitive conjuring. The narrative as here recounted is translated from a style of Polynesian recitative that suggests very strongly both the form and the atmosphere of the archaic ceremonials from which the Greek tragedy and comedy were developed in the 6th century BC. Just as the Greek satyr chorus sang and danced its strophe and antistrophe, turning and whirling in the labyrinthine dance while the legend of the god or hero was being sung, so here. Captain Cook and the other early voyagers in the Pacific have described the great religious festivals where literally hundreds of dancers in orderly files and rows performed sacred hulas to the boom of drums, sonorous gourds, and organ pipe bamboos thumped upon the ground, while the sacred chants of the heroes and the gods were sung in strophe and antistrophe by soloists and choruses of many voices. For example, Tatuna's melancholy chant of lament for the loss of Hina, when the people had convinced him that he should go to win her back, appeared in the original as follows. First voice. Kuariro, my loved one has been stolen from me. Second voice. Te aroha I te hoa ki roto I te manava. Grieving love for the wife stirs within the heart. Chorus. Kuariru, for she has become the mistress of another. Matagi kavia mai e kuariro ho atu. The winds have brought the word that she has been stolen from me. We now set out. First voice. Ho atu matou ki vavau. We now set out for Vavau. Second voice. Kia higo I te hoa. To see the loved one. Chorus. Kuariro, who has become the mistress of another. Matagi I aue kuariro te aroha. Wailing the very wind's lament. Her who has been stolen from me, grieving love. First voice. Te aroha I te vahine. Ki roto I te manava. Grieving love for the wife wells within the breast. Second voice. Kia kite taku mata I te ipo. Would that my eyes again beheld the loved one. Chorus. Kuariro, who has been stolen from me, now clasped in the arms of another. Matagi I aue te aroha, e. Even the winds lament. Bitter is my anguish and despair. Farther along in this chapter, we must look again at the highly complex but gradually clearing problem of the relationship of the early Pacific to the archaic Mediterranean traditions. But first let us enlarge our spectrum of the myths and tales of the Polynesian monster eel. We shall then be in a better position not only to analyze the variant versions of the myth in the Bible, but also to comprehend the reduced role of the serpent in the Greek Persephone and Indonesian Henuele versions of the myth, with their stress on the ritual sacrifice of a pig. For one of the most important as well as illuminating aspects of the prehistoric perspective opened by a comparative study of myth rests on the problem of the pigs taking on the role of the serpent as the sacred animal of the labyrinth, and after the pig, the bull, and after the bull, the horse. In the course of its long history and longer prehistory of diffusion, the mythologem, or nuclear mythological image, of the origin of the food plant generated a broad series of mutually clarifying yet strikingly different variants, each seeming to reveal some essential quality or aspect of what must once have been the primal form, yet none being definitely more eligible to be its representative than any of the rest. The picture can perhaps be compared to that of a number of sisters and brothers, all representing a family type, yet none more authentically than the rest. And the more numerous the gathered examples, the more fascinating and tantalizing the comparison. For instance, in the Friendly Islands, Tonga, it is told that a male child, eel, was born to a human couple, who had also a pair of human daughters. Eel, living in a pool, sprang toward his sisters in eager affection, but they fled. And when he pursued, they jumped into the sea and became two rocks that may be seen to this day off the shore of Tonga Tabou. Eel went on swimming to Samoa, where he again took up life in a pool. But when a virgin bathing there became pregnant because of his presence, the people decided to kill him. He told the girl to ask the people to give her his head, and when he had been killed, and to plant it, which she did. And it grew into a new sort of tree, the coconut tree. In Mangaya, one of the Cook Islands, the maiden's name was Ina, a dialect variant of Hina, and she liked to bathe in a certain pool. But there was a great eel that swam past and touched her. This occurred again and again, and one time he threw off his eel form and stood there before her as she bathed, a beautiful youth named Tuna. Once again, Tetuna. Ina accepted Tuna as her lover, and he would always visit her in human form but become an eel when he went away. And then one day, he told her that the time had come when he would have to depart from her forever. He would make one final visit the next day in a great flood of water in the form of an eel, when she should decapitate him and bury the head. Tuna came, Ina did as she had been told, and every day thereafter she visited the place of the buried head, until at length a green shoot appeared, which grew into a beautiful tree, and in the course of time produced fruits, the first coconuts. And every nut, when husked, still shows the eyes and face of Ina's lover. Plant origin stories conforming to this stereotype are common for the other food plants of Polynesia also. The breadfruit tree first appeared, for example, according to a legend told in Hawaii, when a man named Ulu, dwelling near the present city of Hilo, died of famine. He and his wife had a sickly baby boy whose life was endangered by the general scarcity of food, and the man, distracted, had gone in a prayer to the temple at Pu'u'eo to learn from the god what should be done. Now the god of that temple was of a type known in Hawaiian as the mo'o, which is a word meaning lizard or reptile. But the only reptile in Hawaii is a harmless, even affectionately regarded little lizard that scurries up and down the walls of people's houses and clings like a fly to ceilings, trapping insects with its quick tongue. The manner in which the mythological system of the islands has magnified this innocuous creature to the proportions of a greatly dangerous divine dragon supplies one of the most graphic illustrations I know of a mythological process, seldom mentioned in the textbooks of our subject, but of considerable force and importance nevertheless, to which the late Dr. Ananda K. Kumaraswamy referred to as land nama, land naming or land taking. Through land nama, land naming or land taking, the features of a newly entered land are assimilated by an immigrant people to its imported heritage of myth. We have already noted the case of the role of the serpent assumed by an eel. We are now considering that of the same serpent role assumed by a harmless lizard. We might also have considered the manner in which the Pilgrim Fathers and pioneers of America established their new Canaans, Nazareths, Sharons, Bethels, and Bethlehems wherever they went. The new land and all the features of the new land are linked back as securely as possible to the archetypes, the spiritually, psychologically, and sociologically significant archetypes of whatever mythological system the people carry in their hearts. And through this process, the land is spiritually validated, sanctified, and assimilated to the image of destiny that is the fashioning dynamism of the people's lives. We shall have plenty of occasion throughout the following chapters to observe the force of this principle in the shaping of symbols. The process has now been clearly announced to us by the monster eel and the noble mo'o of the mythologies of remote Polynesia. To proceed, then, with the legend of the origin of the breadfruit. When the man, Ulu, returned to his wife from his visit to the temple at Pu'u'eo, he said, "I have heard the voice of the noble Mo'o, and he has told me that tonight, as soon as darkness draws over the sea and the fires of the volcano goddess Pele light the clouds over the crater of Mount Kilauea, the black cloth will cover my head, and when the breath has gone from my body and my spirit has departed to the realms of the dead, you are to bury my head carefully near our spring of running water. Plant my heart and entrails near the door of the house. My feet, legs, and arms hide in the same manner. Then lie down upon the couch where the two of us have reposed so often. Listen carefully throughout the night, and do not go forth before the sun has reddened the morning sky. If in the silence of the night you should hear noises as of falling leaves and flowers, and afterward as of heavy fruit dropping to the ground, you will know that my prayer has been granted. The life of our little boy will be saved." And having said that, Ulu fell on his face and died. His wife sang a dirge of lament, but did precisely as she was told, and in the morning she found her house surrounded by a perfect thicket of vegetation. Before the door, we are told in Thomas Thurum's rendition of the legend, on the very spot where she had buried her husband's heart, there grew a stately tree covered over with broad green leaves dropping with dew and shining in the early sunlight, while on the grass lay ripe round fruit where it had fallen from the branches above. And this tree she called Ulu, breadfruit, in honor of her husband. The little spring was concealed by a succulent growth of strange plants, bearing gigantic leaves and pendant clusters of long yellow fruit, which she named bananas. The intervening space was filled with a luxuriant growth of slender stems and twining vines, of which she called the former sugar-cane and the latter yams, while all around the house were growing little shrubs and esculent roots, to each one of which she gave an appropriate name. Then summoning her little boy, she bade him gather the breadfruit and bananas, and reserving the largest and best for the gods, roasted the remainder in the hot coals, telling him that in future this should be his food. With the first mouthful, health returned to the body of the child, and from that time he grew in strength and stature until he attained to the fullness of perfect manhood. He became a mighty warrior in those days, and was known throughout all the island, so that when he died, his name, Mokoola, was given to the islet in the Bay of Hilo, where his bones were buried, by which name it is called even to the present time. An important system of such myths and rites, folk tales and folk customs, deriving from a nuclear concept of reciprocities of death and life, both in the way of killing and consuming, and in that of propagating and dying, has been identified throughout the broad belt of the tropical equatorial zone, from the West African Sudan across the Indian Ocean deep into Polynesia, indeed all the way to Easter Island, where the concept is rendered in the image of a cotton-eaten fish. Where is our ancient queen? We read, for example, in a text supplied by a native informant, who was reading, or at least professing to read, one of the mysterious hieroglyphic tablets of Easter Island that are supposed to have been preserved there for generations. It is known, the reading continued, that she was transformed into a fish that was finally caught in the still waters. Away, away, if you cannot name the fish, that lovely fish with the short gills that was brought for food to our great king, and was laid upon a dish that rocked this way and that. Many variants of the constellation are known, ranging from cannibalistic rites to poetical tales of parental love. But their kinship is clear. Nor is the vast diffusion difficult to credit. The Indian Ocean basin has been the watery highway for millenniums of cultural exchanges, back and forth, while Polynesia received its population largely from the Indonesian zone. A single language family, Malayo-Polynesian, extends, in fact, all the way from Madagascar, just off the coast of Southeast Africa, eastward to Easter Island, off the coast of Peru, and from New Zealand north to Formosa, and northeast to Hawaii. Such linguistic affinities indicate not only cultural and historical relationship, but also psychological homologies, and to such a degree that not even the most passionate supporter of a theory of parallel development would presume, I should think, to explain according to his cherished principles such a coincidence as that represented by the following ways of naming the numbers from 1 to 10. So now follows a small table of the names of the numbers of 1 to 10. And what we see is names in Madagascar, in Indonesia, and Polynesia. And in Madagascar, the language is Malagasy. In Indonesia, there are 3 languages, Malay, Javanese, and Tagal. And in Polynesia, there is Samoan and Maori. So 1. So I'll read the number, and then I'll read the different names for the number in those 6 languages. So 1, Isa, Sa, Isa, Tasi, Tahi. 2, Rua, Dua, Ru. Dalawa, Lua, Rua. 3, Telu, Tiga, Telu, Tatlo, Tolu, Toru. 4, Efatra, Ampat, Pat, Apat, Fa, Wa. 5, Limi, Lima, 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 Rima. 6, Ini or Ina. Anam, Ne or Nem. Anim, Ono, Ono. 7, Fitu, Tuju, Pitu, Pito, Fitu, Witu. 8, Valu, Dulafan. Wolu, Walo, Valu, Waru. 9. Sivi, Sambilan, Sono, Siyam, Iva, Iwa. 10. Fulu, Pulu, Pulu, Polo, Sefulu, Nahuru. The next step in this comparative study is to follow our theme to the shores of Peru and Mexico, the jungles of the Amazon, and the North American plains. So that ends section 4 of chapter 5. Next time we'll at least begin section 5, entitled Parallelism or Diffusion. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day.